The topic is Czesław Słania. Only recently I learned how to pronounce his name. I find it still very difficult because this L in Polish apparently is pronounced more like a W. Anyways, this is a picture from shortly before his death in 2005. And this is the agenda for my presentation. A short introduction, a little bit about the engraving, his life, and then specifically philatelic items, Sweden, Poland, other countries, and non-philatelic items that pertain to his artistry, and also then a list of some further links and a bibliography. I need to acknowledge that much of the information comes from this website, and also the book Das Lebenswerk von Czesław Słania by Leonard Bernadotte. This website is so excellent. I just have to keep on referring to this. It's full of information. Every stamp of Czesław, who he designed or created, is on that website. It's just an amazing feature. He was a master engraver. He is the inheritor of a centuries-old skill that has been practiced by some of the greatest artists, including Rubens, Rembrandt, and Dürer. It's not a bad company to be amongst. Słania used a 500-year-old technique of creating an engraving on a metal plate and a mirror image on a one-to-one scale. In the case of small format stamps, this required extreme precision. As his colleagues recall, he was rarely satisfied with the results of his work. He put off the finished project for a few days, started another one, and then returned to the previous one to improve it even more. And this one-to-one scale is just the one that comes back to amaze me at how that is done. And he just created so many of his stamps with this tool. This is a burin. And it's engraving is the art where lines, dots, dashes are cut into a soft metal plate, mostly copper, with a tool called a burin. And this website there's Norby Hus from Denmark, is very instructive, very, very interesting. You see Słania here on the left side at his work table. Also, here are some pictures over the years. He was working in all kinds of situations. On the left, he's in a tent somewhere, probably vacationing, but working. And then over the years, at different stages of his life. And he engraved 1,547 stamps. Jokingly, I would have liked to say we're going to look at each one of those stamps, but that's just simply impossible. 32 countries he created stamps for. Sweden is a major one, and that's how I know him, because I'm a collector of Swedish stamps, and it just stares in your face. His stamps are ubiquitous. They're over decades there, and they're just gorgeous. And he did not just work for Sweden, also the Danish Post Office. Monaco has a lot of stamps from him. The Faroe Island, Greenland, Poland, and a whole bunch of other, including also the US, where 8 of his stamps were published. On top of that, also banknotes from 10 different countries, as well as many other sorts of art that was created by him. So his life, he was born, which is a good thing. He was born in 1921, and in close to Katowice, in some small village, near the German border, actually at the time, and died in 2005 in Krakow. And already in his biographies I read, it said that he already as a boy showed exceptional talents for making miniatures, and still a student was offered employment with a Polish stamp printing house where he was working for 6 years. Now, this exceptional talent meant that he was, for example, painting a Polish 5 zloty bill with a picture of his girlfriend at the time. And this is a picture, he was still a student. Now, I think he was a high school student, probably at the age 19. And this is from self-portrait engraved by himself. And also in Wikipedia is also an amazing tool. In this case, I got a little bit more information from the Polish version of the Wikipedia, where it said that he started by forging school IDs, many times accompanied by his friend Kazimierz Majecz. They traveled across Poland with forged train tickets at their disposal. Also, when I read some of the stories very early on, and this must have been really in grammar school, for lunch, they would have milk and rolls, but you could have also other food if you had a voucher. You had to purchase that voucher. So he proceeded to forge those vouchers and fed his friends and himself. Also with the school ID, he lost it at one point, and there's a real one. And then in order not to wait for a replacement, he forged a new one. He lost it also. Both of the school IDs were turned in to the principal, who in turn then kicked him out of school. So he eventually did not become a criminal, which is a good thing for Philately, I think. 1944, he joined the partisans of the People's Army, the Polish People's Army. And he mostly was forging documents, forging German money and documents for the Polish resistance. At the end of 1945, he entered then the Academy of Fine Arts at Krakow. And when he graduated in 1956, the delay of 11 years is only due to the fact that soon after he entered the Academy of Fine Arts, he got already commissions to work on different projects, including also stems, and he just didn't have enough time to finish his graduation work. Eventually he did in 1956, the year also when he, due to poor health, apparently he had lung disease, left Poland for Sweden and didn't go back. Now that is actually still a puzzling step for me. I could not find exactly how he managed to leave Poland in 1956. It's an East Bloc country at the time. People did not easily travel outside of the Eastern Bloc. So how he did that, I have no idea. That's still something to find out. Anyways, he spent a few years in Sweden before he was able to get a job with the Swedish Post Office in 1959. Going back actually to the graduation, this is his graduation work, his masterpiece, so to say. If he would have been in a guild, that would have been from a journeyman to become a master, he would present his masterpiece. This was it, the Battle of Tannenberg. And it's a major battle in the history of Poland, establishing more or less their independence against the Teutonic Order at the time. The battle was sometime in the 15th century. Anyways, so it's based on a painting, and it took him 2 years to create this engraving. He has also a sense of humor, not just humor, but as one aspect of his is that in his work you will find microprints. So here indicates on the top right, there's a spot where he engraved the dates 1154, November 1954, and November 1956. So the dates the time it took him to create this work. That engraving he also compressed in a stamp format, and in the lower left it says here Prasha Diplomova. So this is obviously not a stamp. It looks like a stamp, but it's not a valid, it was not issued by the post office. However, it still appeared on a registered letter. So this exists, made it through the post, and got postmarked 1955. Actually, that's interesting, 1955. I only see it now because his graduation was in 1956. So he was basically done already in 55. Interesting point. Anyways, there was a nice cover with his stamp, which was not issued by the post office. So his first work for the Polish post office in 1950 was where he was allowed to do the engraving for the hammer on this stamp, and then eventually graduated to other stamps for the Polish post office. His last stamp for the Polish post office was the one for the Melbourne Olympics, this one here with a spear thrower, 1956. And then he went to Sweden. His first work after the hammer was the occasion of the 80th anniversary of the Paris Commune, which included then a portrait of the General Jaroslav Dabrowski, and who was at the time the commander-in-chief of the Paris Commune. That was in 1871. So anyways, in Poland, between 51 and 56, he made 22 stamps, plus 14 other designs. So he did somehow end up making a mistake, because the engraving is a composer on the stamp. The real one looks actually like this. Now, mind you, they have the same kind of beard, so I think it's okay. Then this is again Poland, and that was also 1954, a stamp issued for the anniversary of the revolt by General Kosciuszko, and which is also famous for Polish history, and it's very detailed, and again based on a major famous Polish painting. Now Sweden, he only ended up working in 1959, and the first stamp he designed was for the poet, the one on the right here, Gustav Fröding, and it was for the 100th anniversary of his birth. Another one, which was done in 1960, was the one for Anders Zorn, a painter. For one of his paintings, he made also another engraving later on. This one. This, I think, is also an excellent example. On the right side is the actual painting, again taken from the internet, recreated as a stamp by Czesław Słania. It's an outstanding piece of work. Another piece of work which I like personally a lot is the one about the Goethe Canal system, which is 190 kilometers long, connecting the Baltic Sea with the two largest lakes. It's a part of a canal system that connects Gothenburg with Stockholm. You can travel through the entire part of Sweden on canal. It was built in the early 19th century. This is a beautiful engraving of the scene from the canal. Another beautiful stamp is the one about the ballet. And oops, I forgot the scat number here. I read somewhere. And it's very, very detailed. And it's just amazing. Another good example of his art is another stamp with a Polish connection in a way, for the Polish poet Maria Anna Szymborska, who received the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1996. She's engraved here on the left. On the right, you see the engraving that was done by Czesław Słania, and including the stamp with his picture, which Poland honored at the time in 2005 for his creation. Now, there are plenty of joint issues. Well, not that many, but there are several joint issues with various postal administrations, starting with Germany, when I think it was 1993, a Nobel Prize, 100 years Nobel Prize, and you get an engraving of Mr. Nobel, and the same picture was used also in Germany. It's got 2001-55 and 1009-11. Another one for the treaty between Sweden and the US, going back over 200 years, is here on the US and this Swedish stamp. And for some cooperation between Sweden and China, they had one stamp with a pheasant that is common in Europe, and the other one that's common in China. This is now one of his masterpieces. is a detail from a painting that was called Famous Deeds of Swedish Kings. And it's issued because he created, or rather he engraved 1,000 stamps by then. That was number 1,000. 560 of them in Sweden and the rest in other countries, Denmark and so on. And there was a first day cover issued in Stockholm showing the Buren, and then also again the stamp. It's an amazing piece. One thing he did, as I mentioned before, he engraved in some of the stamps in his engravings little details. In this case, he had himself in this race. So I don't know if you can see it here on the left, on the bottom left. That's him with his glasses. And it says on the bib there 1972, which is the year when it was created. And somewhere on there, apparently it says J. Afton, which is Jul Afton, Christmas Eve in Swedish. So here you have him. He also put himself in a stamp in Poland. He has a mechanic on this stamp here. I think that was in 1953. Again, these are stamps that were not stamps, engravings that were not issued. Okay, the stamp was issued. His engraving obviously was done just for himself as fun, a piece of fun. And he did several engravings also of his mother at different stages. So for her 95th birthday, he made this engraving in the form of a stamp. For his 70th birthday, Sweden honored him with a booklet cover. So he's on there, on the right side, you obviously, and here on the left are more stamps that were engraved by him. Also, in Poland, they issued a poster stationery for his 75th birthday, and showing him, however, the picture here is an engraving of himself when he was 60. So I guess it's all right to use a picture of yourself when you're younger. Well, other countries also featured some of his stamps. These are the ones over several years that he did for Faroe Islands. So you have an early one with a map of the islands, one here with a boat and some fishermen, and some very impressive souvenir sheet. Yeah, over 100 stamps were designed by him for the Faroes. This is actually one lovely one, I think. And I mentioned it as from a live model because he traveled back to Faroe Islands and asked to see the same ram. And people told him, sorry, we ate him. So it was no longer available. The US also benefited from his work. So here, some extraordinary stamps, I think extraordinary stamps, like the $1 one on the left. And then the other ones, one about the Nobel Prize here. And also one admirer of his, Roman Harmel, also released and designed a personalized stamp in 2007. And it was produced in a quantity of 5 sheets and is actually valid for postage in the US. So that would be also another nice little collector's item. He even engraved stamps for countries like Tunisia, like this one here, showing Hannibal. That's why you have the elephant in there. But also other countries like the Marshall Islands, the ships, and also here, beautiful, beautiful pieces. Beyond stamps, he also engraved money, banknotes. In this case here, the Portuguese. A couple other banknotes too, Brazil, Canada. Now I can't show the Canadian one, that's forbidden to reproduce them. So, but if you take out the $5 bill or the $100 bill, now the 100 one I don't have always handy, but the 5 note is quite ubiquitous. And the face of Sir Wilfrid Laurier is engraved by no other than Czesław Słania. So he's all over the place. And the guy just didn't know when to stop. Even for his 80th birthday, he engraved then the Battle of from Lützen, a battle in a war of 30 years that took place in somewhere in Germany. The date says here 1632, and the Swedish king was killed in those days. That war, the war of 30 years, has left a huge impression on Poland and Germany, because that's where all the fighting took place. And I forgot now, 1/3 or 2/3 of the population of Germany was killed during that war. It's a historical event. Another, well, now we're coming to more information about him. So there's one website here I recommend, Stamp Engravers Blogspot. It's a book about him. I don't have it, but I've seen on the website a few items about that. For personal use, he also engraved stuff like this, an ex libris motif for Leonard Bernadotte, who became a friend. But the story is also that Leonard Bernadotte is also the great-great-grandson of the Swedish king who started the dynasty of the Bernadottes. So he's actually part of the Swedish royal family. And he got interested, he was more a photographer, got interested in the art of Czesław, and they became friends. And so the Leonard Bernadotte also wrote a book, not just a book, but also kind of brought together the pictures and magnified some of the engravings of Słania, and published a book, which is also highly recommended. You can get it from the Philatelic Library in Toronto. And many honors were bestowed on him, whether he was a court engraver on the left here for the Swedish house, or he got a medal here from the Danish king, then the one also a medal from the Swedish king, and then another one from the Prince of Monaco. Besides that, also Monaco issued a stamp on his 100th birthday in his honor in 2021. That's on the right here. And on the left is just a picture of his grave in Krakow. And I was wondering about his family. He's never seems to have married and no children. And he's buried there with his sister. So they exist also on the website I mentioned at the very beginning. There's a checklist for everything about Słania. So that is highly recommended. There's also a bibliography. Well, here the first one is mentioned, Count Leonard Bernadotte. It's actually partly in English, partly in German. And there are many other books where you can find more about him. Plus on the website, there's plenty. I highly recommend the first one I just mentioned at the very beginning. There's this one here, rene.com/Słania. The other one's also highly recommended if you want to have more about him. There are also specialist groups, and there's one that's still active. This one here, Słania Samfundet, that's obviously in Swedish, but you can correspond with them in English as well. And then there's some books here again.